Did you know the FBI believes there are as many as 25 serial killers active at any given time? However, the Murder Accountability Project believes that number to be closer to 2,000. Welcome. I'm Jay.
I'm T.
We are Fatal Blend.
This is where we talk about two things we absolutely love. A little bit of coffee and a lot of true crime. Specifically, serial killers.
Yes, we do.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are. Once again, for your listening pleasure.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if I'd call it pleasure, but it's definitely listening. Maybe your voice, definitely not mine.
Maybe, maybe not.
I don't do it for the gram. I don't know. Okay, so how are you?
I'm good.
All right. Well, that's good. Glad we're here again. We're getting close. This should be right around the new year when this episode drops. So.
When we say this shit, it's because we're pre-recording them. So we're trying we're trying to figure out when they'd actually drop. And I think you're right. I think it's
right before the new year.
It might be right after New Year.
Well, either way.
It's right around New Year. So regardless, this is where you would say like Happy New Year.
If you're welcoming 2025 or you're in 2025, Happy New Year.
Are you hoping for a better year than 2024? Or do you feel like 2024 treated you good, so you're hoping for just as good of a year? Or what? I
mean, I think every year you look for improvement. You look for bettering yourself and your situation. So, I hope for a good year. I did read that it starts with WTF, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, which also happened to be what the fuck, and 2020 started WTF as well.
Okay, well, way to give people hope. But that also makes sense because it's, like every 4 years or so. I don't know. There's like with leap years, your dates will be the same or whatever. So,
yeah. So there's that. I mean, I'm hoping for new things. Let's say that. I'm hoping for new things.
I'm hoping for a much better 2025 than I had 2024.
I'm hoping all your TikToks you've been doing are wrong. Because then you'll be pregnant and in jail.
I mean, sure, that definitely won't happen, but the jail thing could. The jail thing could. Let's not lie. If 2025 treats me the way 2024 treated me, I might be in jail. I'm not even playing.
Do the podcast from the cell.
Yeah, that'd be kind of a dope-ass podcast, though.
Well, it might get us some views or some listeners. Now that we've talked about that, let's talk about what we're sipping on today.
I am sipping on a iced German chocolate latte with coconut milk.
Very nice, very nice.
It's delicious.
I just went with the old breakfast blend hot coffee with the Chobani sweet cream creamer.
I'm going to really quickly jump in here and say if any of you have ever tried the Cinnabon K-Cups, please let me know because I have them and they are fucking atrocious. They are so cinnamony, like they ruin the coffee. I am not. Actually, Jay might like them. He hasn't tried them yet. Jay and Sierra might like them because they don't like coffee flavor. So this might be for them because it is not fucking for me.
The older I get, the more I start to like coffee.
No.
I said start, lady.
You like to have a tiny bit of coffee flavor, but absolutely not really coffee.
I like some.
Not enough to be considered a coffee drinker.
Well, I am a coffee drinker, but...
You are a sugar milk drinker with a little bit of coffee.
I do sugar-free, thank you very much. So I'm flavor milk drinker, if you want to get technical.
Sure.
But as we're talking about technical, I have no idea how that goes into this. Who are we talking about today?
All right, today we are going to be talking about Kendall Francois.
Ooh, Francois.
So Kendall is nicknamed the Poughkeepsie Killer.
Poughkeepsie. Where do I know that
Yeah,
from?
you do know that. New York.
Yeah, but I think maybe a movie or something.
I have no idea.
Oh, Poughkeepsie.
He has 8 victims.
Maybe more?
Nope, just 8. Well, fucking who knows? But they actually never said that they thought there were more victims. His murder dates are 1996 to 1998. The location is Poughkeepsie, New York, in the United States of America. His method of murder is strangulation, and the characteristics are he hid the bodies and they are prostitutes. Go figure.
Right.
Kendall was born July 26, 1971, and he was born and raised in Poughkeepsie, New York. Now, there's literally nothing was like out there about his younger years. They didn't have anything to talk about until he was in high school. But to be honest with you, I think this is going to be a case of he might have just been born bad. Like, I think this guy was just kind of born bad. There's nothing that screams abuse in my mind anyways. So he was a football player in high school. He went to Arlington High School. He was a big guy. He was 6'4". Big guy, big solid ass guy. Even when he like got arrested and they showed it like him, they had a picture of him getting out of the jail, like not the jail, out of
police car.
No, the van, like a police van going into like his trial. And he's big. Like he gets out and he's like way taller than the van, but he's also solid. Like he very much reminds me of our son, but our son's not 6'4", but very solid. So anyways, he played football and he wrestled in high school. And he graduates high school in 1989. And in 1990, he actually joins the Army, and he is actually sent to Fort Sill in Oklahoma for basic training. And he ends up getting discharged from the Army in 1993. So that's like, I think that's pretty much normal.
So big dude, football, wrestling, and some Army training.
Yeah. But also kind of normal shit.
Yeah, not too crazy. Did it say what he got discharged for?
I think it was just his time.
His time was up.
Yeah, I think he just signed like a shorter contract, like he signed like a 2 or 3 year contract, and then he's done. He's done. So he moves back home and he moves in with his family. And so again, 1993, he would be 22. So he's like 22 years old. And he actually enrolls in Dutchess Community College, and he takes liberal arts classes there. And he literally stays there, and he goes kind of off and on to school. And he ends up finishing school in 1998. So he's like there for 5 years, which again, I've gone through college. It took me 8 years to get a 4-year degree. Like it took you 8 years to get a 4-year degree. So sometimes it just takes a long time because you have to go part-time or whatever. He also had a variety of jobs. One of those jobs included being a student monitor at Arlington Middle School from 1996 to 1997. By monitor, I literally mean he was like a hall monitor. I didn't even know they hired for these things.
Yeah, probably then it's like their form of security.
That's what I was thinking. Honestly, as I was looking at his size and thinking about like his training, I was like, that's basically probably what security would be. He had some complaints against him when he worked at the middle school by teachers. They, in particular, were addressing the way that he behaved towards the female students. Again, middle schoolers. He would touch their hair. He would also tell jokes to them that were overtly inappropriate. They had sexual innuendos to him. The students at the school actually nicknamed him Stinky. I don't know if he smelled. I don't know. That's just what they called him.
It's not a good nickname.
No, it's not. Typically not a good nickname. And then even with the complaints that he had at the school, he actually had a completely good, clean work record with the school. Like he never was actually like reprimanded, or he didn't get written up for any of these complaints. So obviously whatever was being complained about, either they didn't take it seriously or they checked it and was like, yeah, it's harmless fun or whatever, which harmless fun is never right when it's sexual innuendos towards
Yeah, not when you're older and you're talking about middle school kids.
Absolutely not. So this brings us to October of 1996. Now, again, he's working at the middle school. Okay. And this woman, Wendy Myers, she's 30 years old. She's actually reported missing in Ulster County, New York. Now, she was last seen at a Valley Rest Motel in Highland, and she was described as a white female with a slim build, short hair, and hazel eyes. And then in December of 1996, so 2 months later, Gina Baroni is 29. She is also reported missing by her mother, and she was actually last seen on November 29th on a street corner in Poughkeepsie. It was reported that she had gotten into an argument with some man, and she is described as a small-build white woman with brown hair. She has an eagle tattoo on her back and a tattoo on her right arm that just read POP, like P-O-P in big letters. Then January 1997. So if you notice, I'm telling you these women are missing. I'm not saying they're dead. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because this is how the story unfolded. So I'm giving it to you as if this is how it goes. We all know that fucking Kendall's responsible. We all know this. But I'm telling you how it happened in the world of these people. So then on January of 1997, so a month later, Kathleen Hurley, she's 47. She also goes missing. Now, she is last seen walking along the main street in downtown Poughkeepsie. She's described as a white female, small build, brown hair. She has a tattoo of the letter CJ on her left bicep. So this is 3 women right now.
So we got brown hair, white, small.
So you can already pick up on there's definitely a pattern. Okay. Well, you're not the only one who picks up on it, because during this time, some prostitutes now that have been working the streets have actually called the cops and reported Kendall actually to the cops and said he gets really rough during sex and it's like scary, which I would say, if I'm being honest, it takes a fucking lot for a prostitute to try to file a complaint against somebody who hired her, because they're putting themselves at risk of being arrested for prostitution. Yeah. So obviously something was going on. This kind of triggers a little bit for the police, because they also notice around this time that 3 women have been reported missing literally in the last 3 months, and they all kind of look the same. And yes, they're all prostitutes, but it's weird because they're just disappearing. They're not finding them dead. They are vanishing. So they decide, after getting complaints, because it didn't say this, it says it later, or it talks about this group later, but they used, during their investigation in this whole thing, they actually used the Poughkeepsie narcotics team, because the narcotics team had good relationships with the people on the streets. They had good relationships with drug dealers, prostitutes. And why do they have those? Because they're there to help. They help protect those people, and those people are willing to work with them. So by talking to that group, that's where the complaints would come from. And so they would complain to those cops, and they say this. Well, during this time, they're hearing that, okay, there's a man who's being really fucking terrible to these prostitutes. So we should probably go see what this is about, especially because we have some missing ones. I don't know. So the police decide they're going to go to Kendall's home and they're going to put it under surveillance. So they figure out where, they look him up, find out where he lives, and they put his home under surveillance. And honestly, their whole reason for doing it is because of the prostitutes missing. Yes, the prostitutes being roughed up was part of what triggered them to look into him, but they immediately, at that point, he was on their list of people, because it's he's roughing up girls. 3 women are missing. We need to keep an eye on him.
Let's have some conversation.
Yeah. Well, and let's keep an eye on him. I appreciate the surveillance, to be honest with you. Well, they do this for a while. And again, they got this information. Oh, it's called the Neighborhood Recovery Unit. So the narcotics team has a team that's called the Neighborhood Recovery Unit, and they work directly with prostitutes, drug dealers, and convicted criminals on the streets. And it's kind of one of those things where if you see something, say something, and we won't hold you accountable. We don't judge you. It was like a safe space for people to come to this group and tell them things that were going on that were illegal or dangerous, and they would not get in trouble. So if you're a drug dealer and you just watch somebody get killed, you could literally go to these people and be like, I literally was on the on the corner dealing some dope, and I saw a homie kill other guy. And you're not going to get arrested for the drugs. They're going to go after it. That's kind of what this whole thing was. So that's where they had gotten this information from. They kept him under surveillance for quite some time, and nothing came of it. Nothing suspicious was happening. He never brought women home. Nothing. So they kind of stepped back.
They said, okay, move on to the next.
Yeah. So then in March of 1997, so this is 2 months later, Catherine Marsh was reported missing by her mother. Now, she was last seen November 11th of 1996. So she hadn't been seen for quite some time. Again, prostitution. However, not seen and not hearing from her are 2 different things. I'm assuming her mother called her missing because she hadn't heard from her.
Right.
But when they do digging, they find out that nobody has seen her since November. Now, she is described as a white woman with a small build, brown hair and blue eyes. So again,
that's number 4.
Number 4. Now, at this point, the police are really like, okay, there's definitely a pattern building. All of these women that have gone missing within the last 6 months are all small small build women. They are all white and they all have brown hair. That's not a coincidence because they're also just, again, vanishing. No bodies are turning up. They're just disappearing. And nobody, even when they talk to like prostitutes that are working with them, these prostitutes can't even really point out who the last person was they were gone. With. Yeah, they just literally just like vanish. So they decide that they are going to call in the FBI because they're like, this is kind of above our pay grade. So in April of 1997, they call the FBI to help with the investigation. Now, the FBI is totally on board to do it. However, they are like, so here's the problem. We can't produce a profile of your suspect because there's no crime scene. Like, we need a crime scene to be able to profile what happened to be able to give you something. You're literally telling us about women that are vanishing. They're not showing up dead. I can't give you a profile on what kind of a person this is because there's no bodies for us to look at. There's no crime scenes. All you're telling me is that these women are missing. So the only thing we can tell you is that there's a man or a woman out there who is taking but these small women that are easy targets that have brown hair. Like, that's the most I can give you. I can't give you anything else, which is unfortunate, but it's true. You need to have a bunch of information. It just wasn't there. So then in October of 1997, so now this is 7 months later, Michelle Eason is 27 and she is reported missing from the city of Poughkeepsie again. Now, she was last seen in the downtown area of Poughkeepsie, although she is described as an African-American female woman. She does have a small build and she does have brown hair. So that kind of throws it off a little bit. They're kind of like, okay, what's going on now? Now, in November of 1997, which is a month later, Mary Healy is reported missing by the police. She's reported missing by the police because what had happened was Mary Healy's mom had passed away in October and they were trying to find next of kin. And everywhere they went, Mary Healy was nowhere to be found. So the police filed their own missing persons report.
Everywhere that Mary went, the police were sure to go.
There you go.
Yeah.
They did. And so they file a missing persons. Now missing persons have it. They start doing some digging and they actually find out that the last time Mary Healy was seen was in February of 1997. And this is November. So in the very beginning of the year she was seen. Then on June 12th, 1998, so this is 7 months later, Sandra Jean French is 51. She also goes missing. Now, her car is found 3 blocks away from Kendall's home. And then on August 1998, Katina Newmaster goes missing. Now, she had been known to frequent all the same locations that the other missing women had been to. So now they're really starting to link together that there is a man or a woman who is frequenting these prostitute spots and fucking killing them. She was also described as a white woman, small build, brown hair. Comparing all the women that are missing, they notice some very extreme similarities.
Huh.
They're all weird. Most of them, the one
like what we already picked up on.
Yes, they're
but still small build, brown hair.
Yes, they're mostly white females. They mostly are small build. They all have brown hair, and they all have literally just vanished into thin air. Nobody has heard or seen from them. Nobody has any idea of who they went with, where they went, why they went, and why they haven't returned. Now, several of the girls that we're talking about were arrested for prostitution. It's safe to say that pretty much all of them were prostitutes. Not all had been arrested, but they were all part of prostitution. So again, another similarity. So they had, during this investigation, they actually had times where they would have like good, solid suspects, but then something would happen that would clear that suspect. Or like they did have one guy that they had as a suspect all the way until they actually caught Kendall. Like they were going to arrest this guy. He had nothing to do with it, but they like, he was what did they say? I didn't write it down. I should have. He was like he was a rapist that had been let out of prison. And so, I mean, fucking arrest him anyway. Like, bitch, please, like, whatever. But they had said like he was literally on the hook for it. And then we ended up finding what we needed from Kendall, and that ended that. So they do eventually actually end up interrogating Kendall because he does fall on their list of suspects because he has complaints against him from prostitutes that happen to frequent the same areas that these women who went missing, right? So he does these interviews and he literally, like, they pulled him over and they were like, hey, we'd like to talk to you down at the station. And he's like, yeah, okay. So he follows him down. He's super cooperative. He talks to them. He answers all of their questions, and they're like, yeah, okay, like,
have a nice
head on home. Like, there's nothing you can do.
We'll let you know.
So he does. So he starts to go home, and one of the officers asks, like, would it be okay if I came to your house? And he's like, I don't care. And he's like, would it be okay if I came in? And he's like, sure. So he lets him in the house. And this home, by the way, he shares with like his family. Okay. So it's his family home. So he's like, yeah, you can come in, whatever. Well, on September 1st, 1998. So again, this was in August is when he got interrogated and talked to. Well, on September 1st, so not very long after, he actually gets arrested for abducting a prostitute. Now, what happens is he meets this woman, and there are two different versions, so I'll just tell both of them. One of them is that he took her back to his house. The other one is that he got her in his car. Regardless, he had this woman, and they start doing whatever, and he starts to strangle her, and she freaks out, fights the shit out of him, and escapes and runs. And she ends up running to
let me guess, small build, brown hair.
You know what? They didn't actually say.
I bet you it was.
So she ends up running, and she ends up at a gas station. Well, she is at this gas station, and she's telling this woman, like, you need to, like, I don't even know what to, and she's afraid to call the cops because she's a prostitute, but she's like, I just had this guy try to kill me, like, blah, blah, blah. She's explaining and describing this guy to the girl. And then she's like, I need to go. So she leaves. She starts to leave. Well, coincidentally, at the same time, these cops had pulled into the same gas station, and this woman walks up to the cops and says, that girl that's walking down the street away from here, she literally just came here screaming and crying and telling me that she was attacked by a man, and she's kind of afraid to, talk to the cops or whatever. So they go and get her. Like, they follow her, and they like pull over, and they bring her, they catch up to her, and I think they even bring her down to the station, and they basically ask her what happened. She tells them, and they're like, okay, well, do you want to file a complaint? And she's like, yeah. So she files a complaint against Kendall Francois. She also knows who he is because he's been around, right? So that afternoon, so this happens, I think, like early morning. That afternoon, they go to Kendall's home to talk to him about this assault, and to also, I think, let him know, like, hey, you have some charges, or you have a complaint against you, and we need to research. So they go to the home. They knock on the door. His mom actually answers the door, and Kendall's there. And so she's like, yeah, come on in. You can come in for questioning. They talk to him for a few minutes. They're like, come down to the station with us. Let's have a talk. So they bring him down, and he is in there for like fucking hours. Like, they're talking to him for hours. Because at this point, this is their biggest lead or suspect that they could find. Because he's the only one that's been having any sort of issues and being found out about. And they're just like, maybe this guy has something to do with these disappearances. Well, over the period of fucking hours, he ends up actually confessing to being responsible for the disappearances of the women.
But not the murder.
Well, he didn't say the murder. However, they did arrest him at that time, and they actually charged him with the murder of Katina Newmaster, which was the last girl that went missing. I have no idea why. I don't know if they just had speculation or if he actually said, like, oh yeah, I killed her. I don't know. They didn't specify, but that was what he got charged with. So they used this information to secure a search warrant for his home and for his car and all the things. And they go to his home. So in his home, they find, first of all, it is filled with garbage, like hoarder status garbage. The halls and all of the rooms are covered in garbage. It's the most awful putrid smell because there's just fucking shit everywhere. Empty bottles, rotting food, piles of clothes, old newspapers, broken furniture. The closets, sinks, and cabinets are all filled with just shit. The smell in the home is so strong that they actually had to wear putrefaction. I don't know what those are. Basically, it looked like
so you don't throw up, probably.
No, well, yeah, but they were wearing, like, what are those N95 mask type thing? Like, they were wearing like big ass masks. They were completely clothed from head to toe in those white suits that, like
a hazmat suit.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, the first time when the cop came into his house, when he first was talked to him, the cop went back to the station, was like, holy hell. One, that house is a fucking disaster, and two, it smells like rotten ass garbage. Like, you can't breathe in this house.
Yeah.
And he's living there with his family. And so anyway, so they're masked up, they're in there, they're doing things. And also during this time, this makes it to where like the whole fucking neighborhood comes out and they are like looking at this spectacle of thing that's going on because they're in the middle of a neighborhood. Some of the people, as they're bringing like, because they got like garbage bags full of shit that they're bringing out of this house. Because I think they're going to like comb through like all this shit. And there's pictures of people around the house and there's kids and stuff, but they're like covering their nose. The kids and the adults outside of the house are covering their noses because the smell, because they had the doors open, was so fucking strong they could smell it outside the house.
It's crazy. Like, how do you
live like that?
Be around that? Yeah.
They also found, so yeah, they find all that stuff, and then as they're continuing to look, they find multiple bodies and the remains of 8 women total in the attic and in the basement of the home. So the bodies are in the home.
So he just covered them with
the
trash.
Fucking bodies are in the home with his parents and his sister living there in the home.
You don't know because you can't smell it.
No, I think the smell they smelled was the bodies.
Probably.
I think, but his, fuck, I don't even understand. That blew my, when I read that, I was like, how the fuck? What? Especially because it's not like he buried them outside. They were in the basement and in the attic. What? He originally pleads not guilty on September 9th to the murder. But then on October 13th, he's actually charged with 8 total counts of first-degree murder and 8 counts of second-degree murder and an attempted assault charge. Now, during his trial, it is discovered that Kendall is also HIV positive, and he was diagnosed in 1995 as HIV, which is also fucked up because he's out here swinging with the prostitutes, knowing that he's HIV positive.
Yep.
Which I believe now in the current day is against the law. If you knowingly sleep with somebody and don't tell them that you're HIV positive, you can actually be brought up on charges for that.
Yep.
As you should. Now, it was stated that, which then this brings out a whole nother thing. It is stated that he actually thought he received or had gotten HIV from Wendy Myers, who happened to be his first victim. But again, his first victim didn't die until 1996. So it makes me wonder, did he kill her because he thought she gave him HIV? Is that what started this whole thing?
Yeah, like kicked it off, and then he was like,
I like this.
I like this.
Yeah. So then on August 11th of 2000, Kendall is convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole. And he was incarcerated in Attica Correctional Facility. And September 11th of 2014, so 14 years later, Kendall Francois dies in the Wendy Correctional Facility, which is like it's like a medical facility for prison inmates. He was 43. Now, there are 2 things that I've read about his death, so I'm just going to say this. First of all, there wasn't like any like big thing about it other than the official cause of death that was stated, I think, on their like website or whatever, is it was an AIDS related illness. Okay. However, he also, while in prison, was diagnosed with cancer. He had found a lump in his groin and it was cancer. So there is a lot of,
maybe a lot of both. Right?
Well, right.
Like
a lot of stories.
Maybe it was the cancer that made him sick and the HIV just made it that much worse.
Maybe. Because I don't know much about the HIV, but I do know it makes your immunity and stuff.
Yeah, it's like
you can't,
immunosuppressant type of thing.
And so maybe it was just that. But I do know that some of the stories did say that he died of cancer. So either way, he did die in prison. And he was actually, he was only 43 years old. I say that like it's a sad thing. He was in prison for life, but still 43. Now Well,
he died where he was supposed to die.
I do agree with that. I will say that the other thing is they did say that they talked to his victims' families because when he died, they like told him, and they were all actually relatively shocked. And I actually agree because he's 43, and one of them said like, I think about my sister every day who he took from me, and he's dead, and I just didn't expect him to die so quickly. He only spent 13 years in jail.
Yeah, I'm sure they wanted him to rot forever.
Right. And so regardless, anyways, so he passed.
Prostitute or not, people are people.
So that's the story of Kendall Francois. Do you want the shots?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So they, at one point in 1997, because, again, they're trying to figure out with who the fuck's doing what. They actually had a prostitute agree to wear a wire and meet up with Kendall. And she did. And literally she had made a deal with them that she would not get in the car. She would not go anywhere with him, but she would walk up to the car and try to strike up conversation to see if anything he said would trigger them to think that it could be him. She did all that. Not a single thing. First of all, he didn't incriminate himself in any way. He didn't even offer, I don't think, for her to get in the car. She wasn't his type, I don't think. They should have taken a fucking small brown-haired female.
Yep.
Now, Kendall did admit to all 8 of the murders eventually, but he did deny to having anything to do with the disappearance of Michelle Eason, and her case remains unsolved to this day. And I would actually believe
Is she the 51-year-old?
No, she was the only non-white person.
Yeah.
I actually agree with that. That was he had such an MO and he had such a type. He didn't sway from that type at all. There's no way he had like an off, like one-off.
Right. And if they didn't find her body
yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
They didn't find her body, then I don't think he did it, which is why I said they really don't think there's or more, because they found every single person that disappeared in his home that they suspected him of. Now, the home that Kendall lived in was shared with his parents and his sister. So his mom, dad, and sister also lived there. Now, they have always denied knowing about his killings, and they've always denied about knowing about the women. Supposedly, Kendall had told his family that a family of raccoons had died in the attic and he was having trouble removing the carcasses. Now, I'm not going to shit on this family. And here's why I'm not going to do it. This was their son. No matter how you want to look at it. I know I talk a lot of shit, but this was their son. They lived, I mean, he was 24 years old living with his family. 25, whatever. And you think your son, he's got a job, you think he's doing everything right, and then you find this out. Nobody wants to believe that their child is capable of something like that. So I'm not going to shit on them because they did have a very hoard house. And maybe the house was hoardy because the parents, maybe that's how they are. Well, they might have really just attributed the smell to being garbage. And then if he's saying, well, there's a family of raccoons, like I can't get him out.
He wasn't doing anything that stood out.
Nothing was outright. Nothing made anybody think anything weird about it. And so I'm not going to shit on the family. One of the things the family did say, which it kind of breaks your heart a little bit, is they had said when all this, came out, they basically just said, can you please just do us the favor? We had no idea this was going on. If you don't understand, our son is being accused of some of the most atrocious things. And also, by the way, his mother worked at a psychiatric facility. And so a lot of people are like, how did she not know? Well, because maybe he wasn't showing. That's why I said maybe he was born bad. Born bad people don't typically have to show mental issues to be bad. They could be just evil. He could just be evil.
Yeah, I mean,
he could have been a totally normal ass person.
He got AIDS.
Yep.
Freaked out.
Yep.
And was like,
and
then had a grudge.
You fucking say that, and that makes so much sense to me because I've been racking my brain going, what happened to this guy? Well, yeah, he became HIV positive. That's a death sentence for him in his mind, especially in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's a death sentence. And so what does he do? He goes after the first woman who he thinks gave it to him. Maybe that's because that's the first prostitute he's slept with. I don't know.
Maybe she told him,
or something, and then it triggered. Yeah. And then at that point, maybe he's like, well, fuck, this is kind of fun. Which
maybe not even fun, but maybe it was, now I'm going to hurt every single prostitute that looks like you.
And that could very well be. God, you should be a criminal profiler. That makes so much sense.
I've been doing this for a minute.
That makes so much sense. You're right. You're totally right. That honestly is a good explanation. Which is also why don't shit on the mom. He might have been a normal ass person. And so anyway, so people were questioning that. And she said, like, the things that my family is having to go through, like my son is being accused of some of the most atrocious things. And I've lost everything in my life. I've lost my son. I've lost my home because, their home is basically demolished after this. Like,
oh, yeah, condemned.
Oh,
for
fuck
sure.
Yeah. And then they had said, so can you please leave us with the only 2 things we have left? And she said, our peace and our privacy. And I agree with that.
It's fair.
They didn't do it. Leave them the fuck alone.
Yeah, they weren't helping
They have to grieve
At least as far as we know, they weren't helping them.
Well, and they have to grieve now.
Yeah.
They have to grieve because whether your son dies or not, your son is no longer going to be with you. And to know that you lived in a house.
Somebody who did that, like that's,
and to know
that would be
the
toughest part for me.
Well, and to know you stayed in a house with these bodies with having no knowledge. Like that's gotta fuck somebody up. So I'm not going to shit on the family because I'm not even going to speculate. Now, Kendall kept the bodies of his victims in the basement. So when after they died, he would put them in the basement. Now, once they were decomposed, he would actually put the skulls in a kiddie pool in the attic. So the bodies were still down there, but he'd take the skulls. Now, it is thought that the skulls were his trophies, and that's why he kept them in a separate area. They also said when they found the bodies, they were in multiple different decomposing stages. So like when they found, full body, because some of them weren't full bodies. They have I think there was only 3 full bodies that weren't decomposed so much that they could take them out in full body bags. But some of them, bugs and stuff had already, they were really decomposing. Now, a criminologist actually started speaking with Kendall a lot of times because she was very fascinated by his story, which I totally agree with, because you're just wow, just out of the blue, which again, good call. So she's writing letters back and forth with him. She's interviewing him. And she says that she has come to the conclusion that he doesn't really seem to have any remorse for what he did. And she said, because at one point she had asked him well, what are you sorry for? Just as you go, she said, what are you sorry for? And his answer was, I'm sorry for confessing. If I wouldn't have confessed, they wouldn't have had enough to pin the murders on me. That's what he says. That's his response.
Sir, the bodies were in your house.
I know. I'm well, they found the bodies in your house. However, they would have never gone and searched his house had he not confessed to the murders. Because he confessed to he didn't even confess to the murders. He confessed to the disappearances. Yes, I'm responsible for their disappearances, which is what triggered their search. So had he not confessed to being the reason those girls disappeared, they would never have searched his home, because they would have had to find a reason to search his home, and they didn't have one. So he is right, but that's really shitty. And the final shot. One of his victims' mothers actually visited him in jail. And she said she had gone there to visit him in the hopes of hearing an apology, and in the hopes of understanding maybe why he did what he did. And she obviously is a woman of God, because she does talk about how God says you should forgive, for they know not what they do. Okay. And she said, I went there with all intents and purposes. I must forgive him because he knows not what he does, because that's what God says. She said, but within that, I was hoping to have some honest conversation and an apology for taking my daughter from me. And I got none of that.
No.
And then, because she's a much better woman than I am, she said, I still forgive him because that's what God would want me to do. Ma'am, I'm going to hell.
Nah, God would want me to shank his ass.
I'm going straight to damn hell, because I'm not forgiving you ever for that. Ever. I'm not.
Right out of the old prison wallet.
I'm not kidding. I don't. These people are so strong, because I'm I'm not. It's not. I do believe in God, but no damn way. No, sir. And so, yeah, she never received an apology. And she said that hurt her feelings more than anything, because it's he doesn't care. But that kind of matches what the criminologist says.
He doesn't care.
And this is also why I said, was he just born bad?
Maybe.
But I mean, again, he didn't start till later in life. But I'm you said, it could be a trigger, right? So it could be that he was born with an evil streak and just nothing triggered him.
Maybe he's got this rage, because I think football.
I was just going to say, I'm not trying to be rude, but
going into the service, there is not all, but there is some.
There's a stigma
anger
behind
and
that.
Rage that connects with some of the stigma. So
and so there is definitely a chance that you are correct. That is why I didn't even think to put that together. That's a really good observation. There is a very good chance that he just got triggered by the fact that he was HIV positive, and it turned him into who he is.
And that's why I'm here listening to these stories, so I can come up with the solutions.
I mean, they've never even said that. So bravo. You know what's funny is you made that connection.
Don't worry, I'm going to give him a call. We'll figure it out.
You made that connection, and in an episode with Sierra, just today when I was recording with her, she did the same thing. She made a connection, and I was like, holy shit, you're right.
It's from listening. It's what
so it was crazy. Well, yeah, because it's a fresh set of eyes with, whatever.
Or anyways, in this case, it's a fresh set of ears.
Fresh set of ears. So anyways, that is the full story of Kendall Francois and the fact that he killed a bunch of women that all looked the same for whatever reason. I don't know.
Well, we hope you guys enjoyed this. We appreciate you listening and sharing and following and doing all the fun stuff on our socials. And as we get closer, if TikTok ends up going away like they say it is in the U.S., feel free to follow our Facebook, our Instagram. We're on there. Find us, follow us, DM us, all that fun stuff. And hopefully in the new year, we'll have many, many more of these.
Yes, sir. So I guess this is the part where I'm going to say goodbye.
And I'll say Bye-bye.